Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ida Rademacher. I lead the Financial Security Program at the Aspen Institute and co-chair our Partnership for an Inclusive Economy. And this segment of Aspen Ideas Reset, I'm so happy to be joined by Amanda Renteria, who is CEO of Code for America. And the conversation we're going to be having is really about resetting the net, looking at the safety net and the role of technology and digital infrastructure as it relates to government and the people it serves improving in the world. So welcome very much, Amanda. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be in this conversation.
Me too. Your choice to move into this position at this time, I'd love to start there because your experience prior to coming to Code for America, I mean, you've led, you were chief of operations in California at the Department of Justice. You were the chief of staff in the Senate for two different senators and have just such a legacy of leadership in the government sector. And to choose a moment like this to move into the social sector and lead an organization like Code for America probably says something about you and something about the challenges you think are front and center for our country. I wonder if you might start there.
Yeah, thanks for that intro. Because at the core of who I am is about public service and making sure we do everything we can to really fulfill that honor of government service, public service, reaching people where they are. Part of my journey in government has been what is the moment that can make the biggest difference? And given a lot of what we've seen over the last really 4 years in our country, the really division and the distrust in government institutions, I, about a year ago, started to look around and say, what are the institutions that are really bringing it back together, that are really building trust within government? And a key piece to that is what's making government just work for all people. And that really, when I looked around, it was Code for America. They've been in this space for 10 years, not just trying to go from paper-based to online, but really trying to be in communities that have often been left out, that have been unable to reach. And they've done the hard work, sitting with communities, sitting with people, going through government processes and understanding what they need at that very moment. And so as we find ourselves in places where people really need safety net benefits, Code for America has been there to match that moment for so many people who need it now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whoever is joining us in the audience today, as we've all had a front row seat to the ways that the American public needed the safety net in unprecedented ways over the last year. Unemployment insurance, supplemental nutrition assistance programs, what used to be called food stamps, even the cash payments. And we saw the ways that those systems were overwhelmed by the unprecedented need. What was the role of Code for America? I mean, you work with many local governments and state governments around the country. What was your role in both addressing the immediate problem, and also what have you seen start to kind of be light bulb moments about not just the band-aids but the longer term fixes that we need to invest in?
So when COVID hit, we knew we could see the spikes in our data of people applying for food stamps because all of a sudden you saw unemployment rolls. You also saw that schools were closed and what was going to happen to these kids who were on school lunch programs. How was that gap going to be filled? And so in very short order, we knew the work that we did needed to scale immediately in order to reach as many people as possible. We also saw that governments, state governments around the country, for the first time really started to see technology as I must have it because this is a lifeline for so many people and you have to do it in a new way. And so pretty immediately we were asked to step in to help make sure kids could get cash for groceries. How do we make sure we'll find those families? Where are they? And so in short order, we were working with state governments all around the country to try and bring that data together, bring that technology together in order to reach as many people as possible. We also saw that with the stimulus and cash benefits. For folks who are lower income and apply for something called the Earned Income Tax Credit, most of those volunteer sites were in person. So not only did we have to bring them online and mobile friendly, but we were taking people through a process that they were used to doing in person and all of a sudden had to do by mobile phone in a trusted, simple way. And so it's been a year or 9 months for me of the heavy responsibility of seeing the need and being able to have a team to meet that moment. And what I see going forward is that this is an opportunity for really our entire country to keep those barriers that we moved away in the time of COVID. Something like you had to go in person to an interview in order to identify who you were for food stamps. Those kinds of barriers really were pushed down, and I think that's the opportunity as we think about the social safety net going forward.
I think in some ways there's other parts of the world that are so far ahead of America in this sense. We've underinvested, or at least this is certainly what I've learned prepping for this conversation, the underinvestment of government in upgrading its own technology, where you've ended up with the kind of partnerships that you have been bringing to this have been so necessary because we have neglected some of the digital infrastructure build that needs to be there for these systems to be interoperable and primarily I think what you're also saying is for them to center on individuals and needs and a user experience that and I think maybe as we think about this as being a down payment on a longer term national conversation, I wonder if you might just speak to that a little bit, kind of like where you think government needs to invest, where you think the priorities need to be as we truly get into this reset.
That's right. It starts with exactly what you just said. How do we make sure that we are starting with government design, IT design, with putting the people that are served at the very center of that design? That makes a huge difference. It's not about the bureaucracy, it's not about the paper form, but it's really about how do you reach people where they are. That's number one. Number two is you're right about this digital infrastructure. And it's this digital infrastructure on two components. One is a federal infrastructure that you can really lean on, and then the collaborating mechanisms between federal and state so that benefits can roll to the people where they need to go to. That piece, I am excited in seeing this administration put some real investment and efforts in that. And now it's important that we get the implementation right, particularly that we're putting in resources to reach people that we might not have been able to reach in the past. Black and brown communities, tribal nations, we do a lot of work in trying to make sure we're reaching immigrant communities as well. That kind of thinking from the very beginning and putting these systems back together again is going to be imperative to have the kind of country that really can foster true economic opportunity for all.
Thanks so much, Amanda.
Thank you for having me.